Last night was the White House Correspondents Dinner, where Colin Jost was the headliner. Of course, the president speaks at these events as well, and so President Joe Biden had a chance to roast and crush Donald Trump, and he also had some serious remarks. So there's the taunting and the mocking that you see, these sorts of things, that was funny, and I'll show you. And also some more serious remarks from Biden about this election, and we'll talk about that as well. Very, very important. But first, here is President Joe Biden saying there is an issue, or this election is about age, but that just happens to be a grown man running against a child.
I want to thank you for the warm welcome, but please, not so loud. Donald was listening. Sleepy Don. I kind of like that. I may use that again. Kelly O'Donnell, President of the White House Correspondents Association, thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.
But Kelly O, let's be honest, you're way too young to be president.
I'm going to pause your viewing of this video super quickly to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just click that subscribe button, and right next to it is the join button, so you can become a member to get the daily bonus show by clicking that join button. Back to the video.
It's been a year since I delivered this speech, and my wife Jill, who's with me tonight, was worried how I do. I told her, don't worry, just like riding a bike. She said, that's what I'm worried about. Of course, the 2024 election is in full swing. And yes, age is an issue. I'm a grown man running against a 6-year-old.
So some good material there, and Donald Trump indeed seems to exhibit signs of a much younger person, not in a good way, too young and childish, and the sort of flipping around of the nickname that Trump coined for Joe Biden, being Sleepy Joe, and now Don being called Sleepy Don because of Trump's constant little nappy times during the trial that's taking place, which is a strange thing to do during your own criminal trial where your own freedom is on the line, but apparently he just cannot stay awake in the courtroom. And then you might remember this moment from a Trump rally.
Theirs was much worse. It's where the Army weathered its brutal winter at Valley Forge, where General George Washington led his men on a daring mission across the Delaware, and where our Union was saved by the immortal heroes at Gettysburg. Gettysburg, what an unbelievable battle that was, the Battle of Gettysburg. What an unbelievable, I mean, it was so much and so interesting and so vicious and horrible and so beautiful in so many different ways. It represented such a big portion of the success of this country. Gettysburg, wow.
Well, Biden had a joke about that.
And yes, age is an issue. I'm a grown man running against a 6-year-old. Well, I feel great. I really feel great. I'm campaigning all over the country. Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina. I've always done well in the original 13 colonies. And speaking of history, did you hear what Donald just said about the major Civil War battle? Quote, Gettysburg, wow. Trump's speech was so embarrassing, the statue of Robert E. Lee surrendered again.
And of course, we discussed that Gettysburg moment when it happened, and it's just one of the stranger things you could possibly observe. Gettysburg, wow, so vicious, but beautiful. And then Biden had this to say, saying that age is something that Trump and I have in common, but on other things, we don't have much in common. Like,
but look, age is the only thing we have in common. My vice president actually endorses me. I had a great stretch since the State of the Union, but Donald has had a few tough days lately. You might call it stormy weather. What the hell?
Yeah, and one of the things that's been really upsetting is, as seems to be the case so often in American politics, there's always the asymmetry that we talk about. And that shows up here where if Biden's former vice president, let's say that Kamala Harris weren't running and then she was going to be the former vice president in this campaign, if she didn't endorse Joe Biden, that would be a huge story on Fox News. There's no hope in Joe Biden, and even his own former vice president, it doesn't like him. But then when it happens to Trump, barely any coverage was given to it. This is a huge deal that Donald Trump is currently running for president. Last time he was president, the person who served as the vice president under him saw things that lead him to say now that he can't support Donald Trump for president. And he says that Trump tried to get him to do something that was unconstitutional in blocking the peaceful transfer of power. That is a huge, huge story. But especially networks like Fox News refuse to really focus much on that. And that obviously comes within a broader context of individuals who worked for Donald Trump. So many former Trump administration officials are now out saying, do not elect this madman. We saw what it looks like when he's in the room for important decisions, and it is bad. Trust us. But again, MAGA sides with the one guy who has every incentive in the world to lie about all these other people, rather than all the other people saying that he is unfit to be president. Then here's Biden shifting into a more serious tone and talking about the stakes here.
On the third anniversary of January 6th, I went to Valley Forge. And I said the most urgent question of our time is whether democracy is still the sacred cause of America. That is the question the American people must answer this year. And you, the press, play a critical role in making sure the American people have the information they need to make an informed decision. The defeated former president has made no secret of his attack on our democracy. He said he wants to be a dictator on day one, and so much more. He tells supporters he is their revenge and retribution. When in God's name have you ever heard of another president say something like that? And he promised a bloodbath when he loses again. We have to take this seriously. 8 years ago, you could have written off it as just Trump talk, but no longer, not after January 6th. I'm sincerely not asking of you to take sides, but asking you to rise up to the seriousness of the moment. Move past the horse race numbers and the gotcha moments and the distractions, the sideshows that have come to dominate and sensationalize our politics.
Yeah, and that is as serious as it gets. And we are seeing, I think, a failure across much of the media in informing people correctly about what we're discussing in this election, what is at stake. And as Biden said, it's not asking the press to take a side, except for taking a side with the truth, right? Siding with the truth, siding with our democracy. And so even if that gets you accused of being liberal, your chief concern is not the allegations that would probably already be levied at you of being too liberal because you accurately assess and inform people on the reality of this election. Your chief priority should be reporting on the facts in a way that is proportional to their importance. And right now, the important facts people need to understand is the stakes, is the way that democracy is seriously on the line. And the fact that so many Americans don't get that is something you sort of have to blame on, at least in part, the press. And so it's not to have any vitriol towards people, but just to ask for better. And that, I think, is what President Joe Biden is doing here. And I just really do think that the fear of being accused of being too liberal is causing outlets to present an equivalency that doesn't actually exist. And that's really unfortunate. I don't have enough time to show you a bunch of clips from comedian Colin Jost's performance, but here's just one moment that was particularly notable.
There is an election. There's an election 6 extremely long months from now. So let me see if I can summarize where this race stands at this moment. The Republican candidate for president owes $500 million in fines for bank fraud and is currently spending his days farting himself awake during a porn star hush money trial, and the race is tied? The race is tied. Nothing makes sense anymore. The candidate, who is a famous New York City playboy, took abortion rights away, and the guy who's trying to give you your abortion rights back is an 80-year-old Catholic. How does that make sense?
And that is something that runs through my head constantly. How are things so close? And the thing I have to hold on to is this is mainly about information not properly getting to people. And when I talk to people, that seems to be the case. Whenever I engage with someone who's sort of unsure, or I don't know, should I even vote, or who cares? Or I feel like both candidates are bad. And it just takes a little bit of conversations for that to change. And so I don't think it's a broken set of values in people's hearts or something, because that's harder to change. It's more just about informing people properly on the fact that democracy is on the line. And also, hey, throwing in that Biden has a pretty successful record when it comes to his long list of achievements on policy issues that people should be focusing on and caring about because it impacts their lives a whole lot. But this election seems so clear and such an easy choice if you understand sort of what facts we're talking about. And so it is sometimes disheartening that it's so close given what we know to be the case about it. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments.